Hello everyone, Darkhizer here again, welcoming you back to my large ship survival build. I have made quite a bit of progress on the project. I did have to make some adjustments. I had originally, in the last episode, I had filled all of this in. I have not yet finished all of my infrastructure, so I went ahead and I took those back out. Fortunately, again, now that I'm working at the level of we're just laying down framework, everything is relatively quick to put in and even quicker to take out. Now, as you can see, I started laying conveyors and all of the necessary plumbing. These are small cargo containers at these intersections, and then we have all of the plumbing necessary. We have conveyors here and conveyors here. These will eventually wind up being the gun mounts or the ammunition feeders that will go behind the gun mounts, since I plan on having another layer, at least one more layer of armor on the outside of all of this. And these are the areas where I plan on placing guns. So as you can see, I went along, I laid out all of my plumbing. Whenever I came to an intersection or a corner, I made sure to put down another small cargo container. The idea being that these small cargo containers, and I have quite a few of them dotted around the ship, these will hold ammunition so that if this feeder line is cut between the assembler or the cargo pod where I happen to have the ammunition stored, these guns will still fire from the ammunition in this cargo pod. So you'll also notice that I'm having all of the conveyor tubes behind at least one layer of armor, and in most cases they'll be behind 2 or 3, since taking out the conveyors that feed the guns are one of the easiest ways to actually cripple a ship. Once you get to the point where you have all of the guns operating, but none of them are getting any ammunition, then your ship is defenseless at that point. You don't have to necessarily destroy the guns so much as destroy their capacity to fire. So as I said, I ran around. This is my primary ammunition feed, and I have one of these going around each of the wings, and then I ran a dual feed running up either side of the keel. These are far enough apart that any major catastrophic damage that strikes the keel will, of course, not take out the tubes running up the just under the outer skin, and vice versa. And again, as I had done over there in the corner, I have this area set up basically as a small ammo loop where I have small cargo containers that I will be using to store all of the ammunition, so that I don't have to worry about one lucky hit taking out a whole row of guns. I am something of a nut when it comes to naming things on my ship. All of these small cargo containers will be named, and in order to keep things straight in my head, I actually plan on breaking up the ship into sections. So that way, and I'm not sure exactly what sort of convention I'm going to be using, I will be moving from port side to starboard side, and preferably from the bow to the stern. So the first cargo container that holds ammunition clear up here in this corner will probably be cargo container 1 or ammo cargo container 1, section 1 or section A. And then the next one will be section B. I may split this up into 2 sections, A and B, and so on and so forth. And that's how I hope to keep things organized. And that way, if I have a gun that goes out, if I have named that gun Gatling Cannon Section 2 D or what have you, then I will know in my own mind, well, there's Section 2 and there's Area D. And so I can find things a little more easily for the benefits of putting them in or troubleshooting them or repairing them. Now, I had to set up a cross transfer system so that I could, again, transfer ammo from one to the other. I tried to make these as scarce as possible because I consider this a weak point in the keel. If you go ahead and you blast this area all the way across, your keel is now reduced to half its thickness. So even though they are heavy armor blocks, I'm still trying to make the ship as durable as possible. This loop that I put in here is to try to cut down on catastrophic failure. This way, if you have an explosion over here that starts to collapse this section, it will come up against the armor block. It'll destroy this conveyor. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a cargo container. So these are our 2 cargo containers for this particular section of the ship. But even if this cargo container is destroyed, then the blast will be prevented from getting to the other cargo container on the other side. And then we have conveyors that loop things around. And it's trying to be more or less a blast buffer. And then here, as you can see, we not only have the ammo feed going around the perimeter of the ship, but we also have it running up the center. So it runs straight through the center of the bridge area, which will be one of the more heavily protected areas on the ship. And then again, this side is simply a duplication of the other side. And again, we have all of these sections. I ran this one up the middle. So again, we have quite a bit of redundancy. That way, if something happens around the perimeter feeder tube, we still have this redundant system that runs up the middle. And then, of course, I'll have to patch that all in crosswise. One of the reasons why I took out this section here and the other section of grid over on the other side is I have only a vague idea of how the gun setup is going to go, and I'm going to be placing 2 of the 4 engines, one just above and one just below the keel. So this section is literally going to be the middle of the ship, and so I need to make sure that I have everything set up correctly so that I can not only reach everything, but so that everything functions well. And it's becoming a bit of a trial trying to do things symmetrically without being able to use the mirror function, so that's making me a little crazy. This tailing bit out here is probably going to be something to which I'm going to attach solar panels so that I will have enough power to operate doors and lights and so on and so forth, so that when I start putting in some of the fine-tuning points of the ship, or when I want to start timing blocks or sensors or things like that, I will actually have a source of power until I can get the engine rooms, plural, put in, and then we'll have engines, because I don't really have a lot of uranium. I am going to have to go out in search of that. So, as I had stated before, we have the general outline of the ship, and now we have everything broken down into 10 by 10 grid, and then we've started to lay in all of the plumbing for all of the ammunition. If your ship is not going to be a warship, you probably don't need anywhere near this number of guns, so you can probably get by with a couple of point defense turrets or what have you. But this is going to be a beast of a ship, and so it's going to have to be able to protect itself. So for next time, I need to start filling in some of the areas, and then I need to start laying in some more of the plumbing. I want to start to set up the areas where the assemblers are going to be that are going to be assembling the ammunition. I want to make sure I have an adequate amount of storage. But instead of having just a few large storage containers, I plan on having lots of smaller ones so that, again, we have a certain level of redundancy. So I thank you very much for joining me. I hope that you will join me for the next episode in the ongoing project. As always, likes are appreciated and subscriptions doubly so. Thank you all very much for joining me. I will put a link to the next episode at the end of the video. This is Darkeyser signing off. Have a good night.